We probably all consider ourselves to be pretty good listeners, but how much thought have you put into the way you listen? Have a think about what it's like to feel that someone's not listening to you, that you're not being heard. You might as well be saying blah, 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 blah. It really can be quite frustrating. Listening involves a set of skills. Some of these come naturally to some people, but others have to be learnt and practiced.
When we talk about attending, we mean focusing all our attention on what the person we are listening to is saying and doing. While this sounds simple, it can be very difficult with the distractions that are often going on around us and the internal chatter of thoughts that are constantly in our heads. You may be surprised to hear that more than half of what we communicate occurs via non-verbal cues such as facial expression, eye contact and body language. These non-verbal cues demonstrate that we are listening. Difficulty arises though because attending is often subconscious. We do it without really thinking. So to effectively demonstrate attending behaviour, it's very important that we are self-aware. This means staying tuned into the messages we are sending out and how those messages might be interpreted. Individual and cultural differences influence the way attending behaviour is both expressed and received, so you may need to make some modifications to suit particular interactions. Attending involves 4 simple but critical forms of communication. Eye contact is one of the most basic but significant indicators that we are listening. The eyes provide a very powerful connection to another person. Keep in mind though, cultural variation means that there are no specific rules for eye contact. For example, too much eye contact, especially with an authority figure, is not considered appropriate in some cultures. You'll need to observe the person you are speaking to and use their level of eye contact to guide your own. Vocal quality is the second indicator of attending. The tone of your voice, your rate of speech, your speaking volume can all indicate whether or not you are actually engaged in the conversation. For example, a slow, flat tone with no changes in your voice will often indicate boredom. In contrast, pauses and variation in inflection, for example, pitch and tone, indicate empathy and understanding. The next form of attending is verbal tracking. This means staying with the topic of interest that is presented by the other person. Not changing the subject indicates to the other person that what they are saying is important, that you're paying attention and listening with interest. Attending in this way involves resisting the temptation to preempt what the other person might say or jumping in to tell them about when you had a similar experience. Verbal tracking helps you to stay in the moment and keep focused on the topic. Body language is the 4th form of attending. It signals to the other person that you are listening and engaged with the conversation. It generally helps to adopt an open posture without crossed legs or arms, to lean slightly forward and present an expressive face and make use of encouraging gestures. Once again, you'll need to be sensitive to cultural variations, but as a starting point, orienting yourself at an angle of 45 to 90 degrees to the other person is generally considered acceptable.
Listening is the starting point for effective communication. To be able to really listen to someone, we need to tune in. Give them our full attention and listen in a manner that is active. When we're tuned in like this, it allows us to be empathic. Empathy is the effort we make to recognise, understand and respect the feelings of others. We demonstrate this empathy through attending and also through our active listening skills. By active listening, we mean not only demonstrating that you're paying attention, but that you've correctly heard what the other person has said. A parent you talk to may not necessarily articulate their feelings, but you can interpret what those feelings may be by paying attention to their tone of voice, body language, and other non-verbal signals. You could describe this as reading between the lines. When we listen actively, we tune in to the other person and monitor our own internal self-talk at the same time. Think of it as listening to yourself on a second channel. This is how it works. Your first channel is tuned in to what the parent is saying to you, identifying the meaning and feeling behind their words. Your second channel chatters away, voicing your values, attitudes and assumptions. Tuning into this channel makes you aware of your own thoughts and feelings without letting them get in the way. To gain an understanding of active listening, let's focus on 5 key skills: minimal encouragers, reflection, questioning, summarising, and pausing and silences. Let's start with minimal encouragers. These are brief prompts we use to encourage the flow of conversation. Verbal encouragers are yes, okay, I see, and the like. Non-verbal encouragers include nods, gestures, smiles, and other facial expressions. These indicate you're engaging with what is being said without any of them interrupting the flow of the speaker. The next active listening skill is reflection. This involves paraphrasing or restating the content, feelings, and meaning of the words you've heard. Reflection encourages parents to express themselves further and helps to promote trust in a conversation. It also shows you have empathy for their situation. A powerful use of reflection is to reflect the feeling of what they're saying or showing through their body language and why they might be feeling that way. For example, "So it sounds like you're worried about your son because lately he hasn't wanted to come to the service." Reflection helps the parent feel they've been listened to and keeps the conversation on track. It can also help the parent clarify their thoughts. The third skill is questioning. There are 2 types of questions, open and closed. Both are very useful in active listening, although each serves a different purpose. Open questions encourage more detailed responses, rather than requiring a yes or no answer. Examples of open questions might be, "What are your concerns about your son?" Or, "How did it happen?" Open questions draw the speaker out and allow access to deeper, more meaningful information. Closed questions are used to obtain facts or prompt for specific information. Questions of this kind can be answered with a single word or a phrase. They are useful to contain or refocus a conversation. They can also decrease nervousness and hostility by focusing on concrete details. Examples of such questions might be, "How many children do you have?" Or, "What school did you go to?" The next skill of active listening is summarising. Summarising allows you to organise and succinctly express the content, feelings, and meaning of what you've heard. It allows us to review what's happened during a conversation, make transitions from one topic to another, and conclude the interaction at the appropriate time. Finally, let's talk about pauses and silences. Pausing encourages a parent to continue talking, and silences are useful for when a parent is still thinking about what has been said. Resisting the temptation to fill the silence means a parent might open up more. Learning to recognise when silences are needed and how long these should be is an important aspect of active listening.